Welcome to the greatest crypto podcast in all the universe's worlds. Welcome to the Orange Brick Road. And you know it's important because I'm using this deep voice. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for our very first episode of the Orange Brick Road podcast. I am your host, Brandon, and I am the CEO of Orange Brick Road, a crypto consulting and education business based in Perth, Western Australia. If you didn't know already, this is a show about cryptocurrency by cryptocurrency experts for people interested in crypto. I'm very excited to bring you some fantastic conversations on all things crypto and blockchain. The format of the podcast will come in the form of interviews where I talk to expert guests in the crypto space on their journey into the world of cryptocurrency and crypto news. Our very first guest on this fantastic podcast is Adam Stokes. Adam Stokes is the CEO of the Crypto Land and is an analyst of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, including ICOs, mining, trading, and exchanges. So sit back and enjoy part one of this fantastic episode where we talk all things traditional and digital finance and how to leverage against them. Okay, welcome back everybody. Today we have a very special guest, Adam Stokes. Say hello, Adam.
G'day, Brandon. Good to see you.
Likewise, mate. I know we've been backwards and forwards a bit. I'm glad we finally hooked this up, mate. It's an absolute pleasure. And like I said before we started this is going to be my little fanboy rant. All right.
I'm ready.
So it's just like you said, take it like a man. No, I've followed you for years. You know, and you've always just brought like just quality content and just your perspective on things. And I mean all this genuinely too. I'm not blowing smoke, you know, and you've guided me into a lot of different areas, even in areas of thought, you know. And I honestly, I've been playing this in my head for the last sort of day or so, just going, you know, what can I say? And now that I'm actually doing it, I'm sort of getting a bit foggy. You've just what you've done over the years and what you've done for the crypto community, you know, it just needs to be acknowledged. And I just wanted to let you know straight off the bat that I absolutely adore what you do and even how you come across as a person, you know, like it's genuine. It's not sort of a shill fest, which a lot of crypto do, you know, and it's through, I don't know, purity of heart and concern and wanting to sort of uplift people, man. So, all right, I'll leave my fanboy rant at that. I 100%. And it's an absolute honor to talk to you, man. It really is.
I'm very humbled and I'm glad you, I guess, picked up my intent. My intent is just to bring the truth to the community. I've been in this space for over 5 years. And look, when I first got into it in 2016, it was an absolutely brutal place to be. There were so many scams, so many rug pulls, so many dishonest presenters out there because there was so much opportunity, as there still is now, to come in, make a channel, shill something that was a clear pump and dump or rug pull, and just exploit a lot of vulnerable people. And the reality is most people in the crypto space, they're just trying to get ahead. Sure, people want to be rich. I've got no issue with that. But ultimately, the majority of people across the world, they're just trying to beat inflation. They're trying to beat the banks who are constantly eroding their savings. They're trying to not necessarily buy 10 Lambos and a 30-story house. They just want to be able to put food on the table and support their family. And we've got enough challenges in life as it is without having shill boys and shill girls ripping off the community by pushing them down a dodgy investment. And it's not even an investment, it's a scam. So when I first got into this space, a lot of the work I was doing, even though I first started off as a miner, was exposing a lot of scams. But unfortunately, what actually happened on my channel was the majority of my work was just talking about scams. And I realized, hang on, I'm almost unintentionally presenting this space as one big scam because all I'm ever talking about is this is a scam, that's a scam, this is a scam, that's a scam. So I actually started to break away from that and say, look, these are the foundations for crypto. This is what you need to look at. This is what you have to accept as risk. And the other thing that I really try to push is that when you get in this space, you're going to make some mistakes. And even if you do everything right, just like with sport, I've used this analogy many times, sometimes you do all the training, you take a shot at goals, you've done everything right, but you just miss. And it's okay. It's okay to miss as long as you stick to the rules only ever invest what you can afford to lose, accept that all investments come with risk, realize that sometimes you're going to lose. If you play the long game, most people will succeed in crypto. And most certainly when you compare it to investing in, look, just traditional stocks, which I've been doing for many years since I was at university, it's so much easier to make money in crypto, even with all the scams that are around and even with all the, I guess, rug pulls and the volatility of the markets. It's still so much easier to make serious money in crypto than it is in the traditional financial space.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And, honestly, I don't know if it's human nature or something, like people will start warning people about a rug pull or a scam and all that sort of stuff, and it kind of brings attention to it, and people will then look at it, and there'll be a percentage of them that will then go out and buy it.
Yeah.
So you're almost like advertising it in a sense, So I like to focus more on the positivity and the positive things that are happening in the community. Obviously, be aware of rug pulls and scams and pump and dumps and that sort of thing. But there's so much that's positive that's happening in the industry, But that brings me to I know a bit about your background because I followed you for so long, and you've given little glimpses of it, But yeah, kind of where did you start? Like sort of just a bit about you pre crypto.
Sure. Well, I've always been heavily, I guess, interested in investing and making money. I've come from a very poor upbringing, and I just hated being poor. Now, not to, turn it up too much, but I always had food, water, shelter, the basics. But life wasn't easy as a kid, and I just hated being poor. So I've made it my mission to have financial security and financial stability. I guess my educational background is, the formal background is I've got a double degree, double diploma, double advanced diploma, and a master's of business. But compared to what I've learned on YouTube and just getting in here my own, doing it myself, I really say this to all the young kids out there. Take it from the guy who spent years at university and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on tertiary education. You can, in fact, learn so much more by reading books, taking risks, listening to YouTubes, listening to podcasts, getting out and talking to other people, being humble, asking questions. And although you won't come out the other end with a certificate, you won't come out the other end with a big debt. You'll come out the other end, with firsthand skill. Now, certainly, I very much enjoyed university because I did 3 international exchanges. I studied in Spain, I studied in Australia, I studied in America, 2 universities in America. And, I had a great time. I had a really good university upbringing, and I made big networks as well. But again, I've made more networks and gained more education through YouTube and the internet and remaining curious and asking people for help and just reading books than I did in all of that education combined. Now, formal education gives you an opportunity to get into the, if you will, the interview room. So if you want to work for someone else, the modern society shows us that we typically have to have this formal education just to make interview. So if you want to work for someone else, and I'm talking outside of STEM, there's certainly, if you want to get to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, university definitely has a place. But if you want to, work for yourself or just get good at business, or I guess look at social studies, I don't believe you need a formal education and a big university debt to be successful in that area. So after I made my own businesses, and I've had businesses that have succeeded and failed. I've served in the military. I've been on 3 operations. But I really got into the crypto space when I went to a friend's house for dinner, and they said, "Oh, you have to watch this documentary." And they're halfway through it. And I said, "Oh, okay, we'll just keep watching it." And they said, "No, we'll start from the beginning." And I said, "No." And luckily they insisted. They said, "No, you must watch it from the beginning." And it was a documentary on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Cash actually had Roger Ver in it, but it was primarily focused on mining. And I was immediately hooked. The thought of being able to plug a machine into the wall and have essentially digital money come out the other end, I was straight into it. Now, that's where my journey started in crypto. I was heavily involved in mining. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on mining rigs. I was mining on the SHA-256 algorithm. I was mining Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. I was mining on the script algorithm for Litecoin. I mined Dash and Siacoin. And from a financial perspective, I would have been much better off taking all of that money and simply putting it straight into Bitcoin and holding it. No doubt whatsoever.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have been much better off financially just taking. I probably spent about $30,000 to $40,000 on throwing the electricity bills, Brandon. They were just off the charts. But what it did give me is it gave me a very sound understanding and firsthand education in mining. I now consider myself an expert in understanding proof of work and proof of stake algorithms, simply because when you're mining on the SHA-256 algorithm and you've bought tens of thousands of dollars worth of ASIC miners and you have electricity bills of $11,000 a month, you very quickly become an expert whether you like it or not. So with that, and I still mine in the background, I still have some machines going because I upgraded my solar, I upgraded my battery packs, I upgraded everything around mining to get a very sound understanding of the core of mining on the proof of work algorithms such as SHA-256 and script. But as I went through, I guess, the crypto timeline, I found that I was explaining crypto to so many people repeatedly. And when I was having a lot of construction done on my house, one of my builders actually said, "Why don't you just make a YouTube channel?" I said, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to be on the camera. I'm not, I don't want to be in the spotlight per se. But then I realized it was going to be far more efficient to simply make a video on this is what mining is, this is what Bitcoin is, this is how you buy Bitcoin, this is how you sell it, this is everything to do with the crypto space, that I started making a few videos. A few years later, and over 22,000 subs, I think we're up to now. It's something that I guess is a good hobby, but the best part is what you opened with, that you see that I'm just trying to be genuine here. I have nothing to sell. I'm advertised or offered to advertise every day. I'm advertised by dozens of advertisers every day. And my blanket answer is no. And the reason is because I'm not really here to sell something. Sure, I've written a book and I sell that, most certainly. And I do have affiliate links that they're products that I endorse and I really believe in and encourage. And I share them with the community. But I don't want to be in a position where I'm compromised, in the sense that if I advertise something that ends up being a rug pull, because there are so many out there, or I unknowingly advertise something that ends up being a scam or disingenuous, I just don't want to compromise myself that way. But most importantly, that's not what I'm here about. What I want to do is I want to empower you and your listeners and my listeners to be able to understand so they can make their own decisions in this space.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what, that comes across with how you approach it. You can't watch one of your YouTubes and videos and not go, this guy is about as genuine as you can get, and I think there's a lot of people that are in the crypto community that are like that. They care about their future, their kids, their family, like everyone does, obviously. But I kind of sort of equate it to time horizon, like when you can get people out of the week to week, we earn this, okay, then I spend this, and then next week by Wednesday I'm broke. And then you start getting them into investing and they start thinking about 3, 5, 7 years later. It sort of even changes, in my experience anyway, it kind of even changes how they view relationships, because they start to think more long-term, instead of that short-term instant gratification, get to the end of the week type of thing. And it kind of permeates. And I think that's what I love about the crypto community is they are future focused,
That's really powerful, Brandon. You know why? Because the irony about what you said, and that really struck me, because let's face it, the crypto land is a place that you can make very big profits very quickly comparative to traditional investing. But the irony of that statement is exactly what you said, is that people now have a better time horizon of looking forward and saying, you know what, I don't necessarily need the Lambo tomorrow. Sure, it would be great. And we say Lambo figuratively. We're not actually going to go out and buy a Lambo, although many people have and many people can. But we use that as a term in the crypto land where it's like, let's get Lambo rich. And what we mean by that is we can make so much money in crypto compared to what we could in traditional finances that we could in fact buy a Lambo, whereas comparative to normal investing and normal working and superannuation and property, you would just never get to that position without some very, I guess, lucky breaks and huge sacrifices, and in some ways even dodging systems so you could make that type of money. whereas in crypto, you can make huge amounts of money within 5 years. And the reality is 5 years compared to buying a house. Let's talk about buying a house. So in Australia, we like buying our property, and the biggest investment that most Australians will make is buying a house. Now, once you purchase a house, you've typically now got a 30-year mortgage. That's a 30-year, I guess, ball and chain to a financial system where you're going to be paying off this huge debt. And when you get to the end of that 30-year road, you're in fact not rich. Yes, you've got a house, you've got a very important asset, and you're no longer paying rent, but you are still paying rates on land tax and insurance and maintenance. And while you could borrow against that house to get some cash, all you're doing is getting yourself into more debt. Now let's contrast that with crypto. Within 5 years, you could easily, if you do the right thing, and all investments come with risk, of course, you could easily buy a house outright with the profits that you make.
Yep.
And moreover, you can make returns, cash flow, especially with the staking rewards that we see at the moment, and I guess sites like BlockFi, not that I'm endorsing or disendorsing them, but I do use BlockFi, where I'm earning up to 10% per annum. Now compare that to a bank where I'm earning 0.01% per annum. I'm losing money with a bank because inflation is, well, they say the official inflation rate is 7.9% in the United States, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. The actual inflation rate is more likely 20 to 40%.
Yep.
And anyone who disagrees with that, just say, well, look at petrol, look at lumber, look at buying a house, look at rent, look at anything, food, for example. These are the real things that people have to deal with. So you have to beat this hurdle rate. To get ahead in life financially, you have to beat the hurdle rate, which is the inflation rate. So no matter what you're doing in life, unless you're making at least 7%, at least, but it's more like, as we said, 20%, you're not even meeting inflation. And inflation is this invisible and brutal tax that is stealing money from all the hardworking people across the world. You go to bed and overnight, 20% per annum has been stolen from everything that you've worked for and everything that you've saved for. Another way to look at it is essentially 2 to 4 months a year, depending on your income and what sort of investments you've got and your tax bracket. We'll say 3 months for argument's sake. 3 months of the year, you are working for nothing, for absolutely nothing. And when people start to realize that 3 months of the year, you're going to work, you're doing your part for the economy, for your family, for yourself, and 100% of that money is just going straight to the government. The majority of revenue for the government is in fact not raised from taxes, it's raised through inflation. And inflation is the invisible, brutal, and criminal tax that is applied on all the good people of Australia and the world, but primarily the poor and the middle class. And I have a real issue with that. And I see the solution, the antithesis to this is Bitcoin.
Yep. No, 100% agree with you, mate, because like taxation in my mind is theft. It's a form of servitude. But going back to them figures, I don't know how accurate these are or whatever, but when you're saying like that's 3 months out of the year or whatever, that's just an income tax. If you then take into other considerations tax, like on your food, your fuel, luxury tax, any capital gains, council rates, tollways, and you actually add all them into the equation, you're probably left with, 35, 40% of that income is actually yours. And then you've got to be paying a mortgage off on that, which has an interest rate, that sort of thing. And out of that 30, 40% of real money in real terms that is yours, one, you've got to live off, but you've also got to secure your future with it, And what are the chances of, just say, someone that has, say, 15% of their actual income in real terms, that they can get that 15% and put it somewhere, so in 20 years' time, it's going to be worth something. And if you get that 10 or 15% and you just put it in traditional stock market, yeah, you might get a bit of growth, but it's not life-changing growth, And that's where I kind of come from, is that everyone's got a certain percentage of their income that they can allocate towards the future. And now, where is the best place to put that? and in my mind, it has to be cryptocurrency. And I know we sound like shills with it, but we're both experienced in the industry, and we can see that if you literally look at superannuation, it's an absolute joke.
Yeah.
It doesn't even keep up with inflation,
That's right. And the fees associated with superannuation are out of control. If Australians take the time to look at their superannuation annual statements, you could have a performance, as an example, of, let's say, $1,000. Well, then they take $700 in fees.
Yep.
And then you're left with $300, which hasn't met inflation. So you are losing money every year to be in superannuation. You are literally losing money. Now, it's amplified for the lower and middle class of citizens. So they're the ones that are hurt the most. Look, but I think when it comes to investing, of course, nothing that we're saying here is financial advice, but the truth is that you have to ask yourself, and which you just touched on, is where do you put your money? Yep. Where do you put your money? So if you put it in a bank, of course, you are losing money in a bank because of, even if you want to say, I've got no fees in the bank, which some banks claim that they've got no fees, but generally you do have fees. But let's, for argument's sake, say there are no fees in the bank. Well, your money's eroding through inflation. You are losing 8 to 40%, depending where you are and what numbers you want to put in the CPI basket. But we'll say 20%. You're losing 20% of your purchasing power every year. So where do you put your money? And you say, well, I'll put it in real estate. So you put it in real estate. Well, take it from a guy who owns a lot of property. Real estate isn't that good. You've got huge expenses, and you also have huge liabilities with tenants. And then you have even bigger, if you look at the pandemic, for example, some of my properties, I had to reduce the rent on. So that became a liability to me. Now you might say, well, I might be able to offset it with negatively gearing a property, but you're still in a situation where all you're doing there is you're setting up a situation where you can effectively lose money more efficiently. That's what negatively gearing is. Negatively gearing is an efficient way of losing money. That's why
an awesome way of putting that.
Yeah. Well, most people are so hooked on negatively gearing, and they're like, I don't want to positively gear because I don't want to pay tax. And it's like, you don't get it. We've been conditioned in this country to believe that efficiently losing money is better than efficiently making money. And that's why positively gearing is, in my opinion, much better, because I'd much rather pay 50% tax on a $100 profit than pay a 30% loss to offset my taxes.
Yeah.
And then we talk about capital growth in property. You say, well, okay, we've got the capital growth in property, so it's going up in value. Well, guess what? First of all, your value of the house isn't really going up that much. It's actually inflation. Your purchasing power, if you buy a house at 300 grand and then sell it at 600 grand, you say, well, I've made 300 grand. First of all, no, you haven't, because if you want to buy another house, all the other houses have gone up in value.
Yep, exactly.
Second of all, if that's not your primary residence, you're going to pay tax on that profit. So you're going to pay a huge tax on that capital gain. So you say, well, where do I put my money? And you say, well, I'll put it into shares. Well, the stock exchange isn't performing that well. And we can see that traditionally shares are giving us, a good year in shares is 6 to 12%. Well, guess what? Yeah. That's not meeting inflation.
That's Tuesday in crypto.
That's right. That's an afternoon. That's very well said. So where do you put your money? So we say, well, we'll put it in gold. Well, the problem with gold is, it's not that gold is bad. It's just that gold maintains its purchasing power. If you look at gold over history, it's not that gold makes you money or loses money for you. It's just that it maintains its purchasing power. If you look in real purchasing power terms, an ounce of gold today can typically buy as much as what an ounce of gold could buy 200 years ago. So that's a tool. But the issue with gold is that if you hold it yourself, you've got to put it somewhere. You've got to put it in a safe, which creates liability. You've got to insure it. You could be robbed. If you have to flee, you have to move it. So where do you put your money? And that's the real question that we should all be asking. So I appear on Channel 7's AusBiz every week or 2 weeks now. And I'm kind of the crypto presenter on that channel. And whilst people are sort of messing around with the steam engine of traditional money, I call it, we're over here in the EV space. They're trying to tinker the old steam engine of finance by saying, oh, maybe we can get a few more PSI out of the boiler so we can go from 3 kilometers an hour to 4 kilometers an hour. And I'm like, Hey, we're over here with EVs doing 0 to 102 now 1.9 seconds.
Yeah.
Why don't you just come over here and just put 1%? And I think many people are waking up to this. You don't have to go all in on Bitcoin. You don't have to go all in on anything. But in my opinion, just my opinion, if you don't have at least 1 to 5% of your expendable money in crypto, you are being financially irresponsible. And corporations are waking up to this. Corporations are like, hang on a second, the 1 to 5% we put in Bitcoin is outperforming the 95% that we've put in every other part of the industry. So we're now getting this runaway effect where more people are waking up to this, more corporations are waking up to this, and more nations are waking up to this. And as they put more money into Bitcoin, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, no, amen, brother. Yeah, on that, like, I think it was Pomp or someone that said a while back, buying Bitcoin is like buying property in New York in the early 1920s.
Yes.
You know, and that really brought it home for me. Is like,
I actually think that was Michael Saylor.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, but he would have been on the Pomp podcast saying that. So
right.
You are right. Yeah,
maybe the connection.
Yeah,
yeah, because that's how I view it, and because I've had over the years, I've got traditional stock guys into crypto, real estate guys in the crypto, and from everyone from an Uber driver to bank. I've even got a couple of bankers that are now. I've got them in the crypto, which is awesome. Yeah. And yeah, that's what I say to them as well is like, and they don't always adhere to advice, just like I don't, and most people. So we can't blame them. But I go like, listen, with stock guys, I'll say, listen, just liquidate 5% of your portfolio that you're in profit with. Obviously, don't do it when it's down, and put it into crypto. And then just because now you've got skin in the game, you're going to now research a bit more and study a bit more and watch it a bit more and actually get involved. And then as you start over 6 months, you start to feel more comfortable with it, and you can you feel you can make confident decisions, liquidate another 5%. Do you know what I mean? And just sort of hedge out, and you will see the results for yourself. And I'm like, if you put 10% of your portfolio into crypto, you can almost, can't guarantee, but there is a high probability that it's going to outperform your other 90%. And then when you can see that, it gives them the confidence. And it's the same with real estate. I had one guy, he had like 11 properties. He's got a bar and a hotel in Vietnam, and he's got, works offshore, very, has invested for years. Got him into crypto just a little bit. And then he sold one of his properties and he got 80 or 90 grand out of it, didn't hold it for long or something after all the tax and all the bullshit. So he put that in the crypto, and then he sort of held that for about a year and sort of watched it and just goes, why am I paying all this, the worrying about tenants, maintenance, all that sort of stuff and that's what he said. He goes, it's effectively buying real estate without the drama.
That's right.
I have control over it.
And it's perfectly mobile. Real estate is not mobile. And we talk about liquidity in markets. Real estate's not liquid. I can't just sell it immediately and I can't move it. And here's the other thing. People are talking about liquidity pools for Bitcoin. Well, you actually don't want to sell it, and you don't need to sell it. And if I do need to sell it, the real power of Bitcoin that takes many years for people to understand is that Bitcoin isn't just a store of value. It's not just a unit of account or a medium of exchange. It is in fact a global financial network. It is the internet of money. If we think about Bitcoin as merely an application such as email on the internet, it goes a little bit further where Bitcoin is in fact the internet, in the sense that we can see that there are applications being built on Bitcoin payment rails where you can plug into this internet of money, a completely decentralized internet of money, open, immutable, all inclusive, available to everyone anywhere in the world, and they can all be part of this. We have estimates from 1 to 2/3 of the world's population are unbanked. Yep. They can't even walk into a bank because they don't have shoes, let alone documents.
Yeah,
Bitcoin
right.
doesn't care about shoes. Bitcoin doesn't care about documents. The other thing I like to think about with Bitcoin is that besides the financial opportunity it gives all of us and the returns that it can give us and the all-inclusive nature, it actually brings us both sides of politics together. So let's face it, we can see that in the modern world that we're getting quite divisive. There's so much division within the modern world. It can be over gender, it can be over politics, it can be over color, it can be over religion, and Vaccine, the good one. Yeah, absolutely. There is just constantly a new topic. Ukraine, pick your topic. There is something that keeps coming up that is dividing us. Bitcoin is, in fact, the equalizer. It brings us all together. Let's say you don't like big business. Well, Bitcoin neutralizes the power and the corruption of big business. Now go the other side. Let's say you don't like big government. Well, Bitcoin neutralizes the big power and big government and the absurdity of inflation and money printing. Whether you're on the left, right, or center of politics, Bitcoin is the equalizer that brings us all together. The saying I like to say, or the thing I like to say now is, I came for the Lambo, but I stayed for the revolution. Yeah. And most people, what you were, I guess, alluding to at the beginning of this conversation is that we have this community. And that community is, I don't care what side of politics you're on. I don't care what color you are. I don't care about your religion, your sexuality. None of that matters because Bitcoin is blind to it. Bitcoin is the fairest, hardest, most inclusive money, community, system, payment rail, internet we have ever experienced in the history of humanity. And that is why I believe it just has such a massive future.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it works on that level because it's out of control. It's not controlled by humanity. It's controlled by code.
Yeah.
Immutable code. So there's no personalities in it. And the irony is that you can have a Black Lives Matter guy and a Proud Boy and, name your side, but they can all exchange value in Bitcoin. And
that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as far as division is concerned, the world is getting very, very divided. And that there's also division in the crypto community too, like XRP Army and But I find most of it to be quite lighthearted and entertaining. Hi everyone, just a quick plug before we get back to the show. Crypto markets can be quite overwhelming space to be involved in, especially if you're starting out. There is a lot to get your head around, like security, purchasing crypto, exchanges, wallet, taxes, and a whole bunch more. That is why we've pulled together an expert consultants to help you through the journey. If you jump on our site at orangebrickroad.com.au/crypto-consulting, you will find a number of different consultants with specialties in different areas. Simply book a call with a consultant and you're off and running. Once again, that is orangebrickroad.com.au/crypto-consulting. Well, that brings me on to another little fanboy section. Your interview with Richard Hart, we're talking about divisive figures, and how you looked into Hex and all that. One, I just want to say how much I appreciated you giving a fair hearing, and looking into it and that sort of stuff, because people are very divided over it. You obviously know about Pulse Chain coming out, right?
Absolutely,
so I've seen you do a bit on that, and there's Hedron and liquid loans and all these things that are happening. To me, that's it's a pure form of capitalism, because you've got these other chains like the BSC network, Matic, Polygon, and they're all doing their own thing, and people are voting with their money. So where do you see, I know this is a very hard question, but where do you see Ethereum in the next 2 or 3 years?
Look, really good question. So I guess I'll wind back. So I've been lucky enough to interview Richard Hart 3 times. And he does mammoth interviews. So his interviews, you got to be ready for 2 to 3 hours minimum. And he only does it live. So to me, that creates a sense of, authenticity. He goes live. So love or hate the guy, he'll go live, he'll take on a lover or a hater, and he'll do it in front of the world with no editing. And
Nuggets News.
Oh yeah, gosh, that was epic. That
wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely epic.
The saddest thing about that though is that I followed him for such a long time, and he was such a really good guy. I thought he was anyway. Maybe he still is. I don't know. But yes, sorry.
Look. I think he is. Just on a slight tangent. I was actually the last person to interview Alex before he went into that fatal interview with Richard. And I think what happened, to tell you the truth, and this is just an opinion, I don't know, so this is just an opinion piece. I just think there's so much money to be made in crypto and in the financial space, is that sometimes you can be taken down the path where gambler drags you. Gambler gets control of you. And a lot of what we do in any investing and in life is a form of gambling. And when you get into a position where you are making huge amounts of money, you can be dragged down a dark path. And that's why you must remain humble. You must remain open. And when we go to remaining open, if we look at Richard Hart's projects as an example, he created so much division in the community. But you were absolutely right, Brandon. What he did was he created a space to say, vote with your money. Yep. And this is what I try to tell people now who get angry at Hex as an example, or XRP, or Dogecoin, or yep. BSV, or all the ones that are quite controversial.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the market thinks.
Yep.
If everyone wants to invest into Dogecoin, so be it. If everyone wants to invest in Bitcoin, so be it. And if you hate Hex, but there's a million people who love it, who cares? The truth is in the markets, and the fundamentals of democracy is people can vote either with their word, with their feet, or with their money. And if many people want to invest in Hex, the code is open. You can see what's happening. People have made an investment in it. It's going to do what it does. Deal with it. That's the freedom of the markets. So now we go on to your question about Ethereum. The issue with Ethereum is this. Many people believe, and actually speaking of Alex, I asked him about Ethereum because, let's face it, really smart guy and knew a lot about crypto. I asked him if he thought that Ethereum could ever be beaten. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, no, basically because of the network effect. The argument is that Ethereum is too big to be beaten because of the network effect. It's too established with too many follows, with too many people who have built on it. Now, look, I own Ethereum. I've invested in pretty much all of its competitors. I have skin in the game with all of them, but I will not allow my emotions or biases to get in the way of making a good investment or pivoting on my position, as I talk about in my book. Here's the thing. Network effect is not everything. Don't believe me? Ask Yahoo how their network effect is going.
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster, Kodak, MySpace, it doesn't matter. And so all of these fanboys and girls who are like, Ethereum can never be beat because network effect, it's like, well, history disagrees with you. The market disagrees with you. Now, that doesn't mean they're bad people for saying this, but the danger that I see for these people is that they fall in love with a coin so much. And I see this with the XRP army as well. Now, I own XRP. That they say the technology is superior. It's like, okay. And they say, well, and it works. And I'm like, okay, if the technology is superior and it works, why haven't the banks adopted it? Yep. Now the argument is because the SEC have taken them on. Now, that's a fair argument, but it wasn't a fair argument 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, because XRP is a good product. And I make that very clear. It's a superior product, but that doesn't mean the banks are going to adopt it. Yep. Now we look at Ethereum. Ethereum is a good product, but it's not a superior product. Need proof? Look at what Solana can do. Look at what Avalanche can do. And if Pulse works, look at what it can do. Now, of course, my deep dive into Pulse was really saying that it's a very audacious project. It is taking everything that Ethereum has created and forking all of it and going from proof of work to proof of stake. But the fair question from many viewers are saying, if Richard Hart can fork Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake, well, why can't Ethereum do that? And I think that's a fair question. And my response to that is, if we go to the core of what we're talking about before, democracy, the issue with democracy is that it's fair for the individual, but it's immensely inefficient. For example, if we want to build a highway from Perth to Canberra, instead of one government, one person saying, right, I'm taking $5 billion worth of the people's taxes and I'm building this highway. In democracy, we have to say, what's this group say? What does that group say? What does this environmentalist say? What do these people say? What do you think? What is the debate? It is immensely inefficient and slow. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum, communism. communism, in my opinion, is very unfair to the individual and very dangerous, but it's immensely efficient. When I lived in China, I've seen it with my own eyes. When they want to build a highway, they don't ask for permission. They just build a highway through the middle of the city. I've seen with my own eyes buildings cut in half, if you will, diagonally, with a highway going through it. They didn't even bother demolishing the entire building. It was moving so quickly, this highway construction, that they only knocked down half the building so they can put a highway through it straight away.
Joking.
So, yeah, insane. I clearly remember, it's one of the most striking images in my memory from being in China, was driving on this highway and looking to my left and looking into someone's lounge room with a couch, because half the building had been cut in half and I could see into their lounge room. Now, there was no people in there, but this building had been cut in half with such haste that they didn't even empty the furniture out of the thing. So what's better? Well, it's like saying, what's better, a car or a truck? It's not so black and white. Yeah. Trucks can carry more, but they slow and use more fuel. And if we look at cars, they use less fuel and you can park them easier, but you can't carry much in them compared to what a truck is. So you kind of need both. Now, we bring this back to Ethereum. The issue with Ethereum, in my opinion, is that you have the Ethereum Foundation, and that is a form of democracy. You have the miners who are involved, you have the developers who are involved, you have the investors who are involved, you have the fanboys, you have a lot of background stuff that we can't even see. And that creates a lot of friction in the community and a lot of inefficiencies in the community, just as democracy does. Now we go to the other end, if you will, and I'm not saying that Richard Hart's communist, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying it's a communist model in the sense that you have one leader, he is the dear leader, he is saying, we're going to do this, we're going. And that creates immense efficiencies, but a lot of controversy. So Ethereum, in my mind, and I said this in the deep dive about Pulse, the biggest threat to Pulse is Ethereum 2.0. And I did sacrifice for Pulse. Therefore, when I heard that Ethereum 2.0 was delayed, I'm like, oh, this is good news.
Yeah.
Now I hold Ethereum. So on one hand, I'm like, well, maybe this isn't so good for my coin. But here's the thing, I'm a numbers guy. If Ethereum succeeds, Ethereum 2.0 succeeds and it dominates the market, what are we going to get? Maybe a 4x. Let's be really friendly. Maybe we get a 10x. Maybe the coin will go from $4,000 US to $40,000 US. Let's say it goes to $400,000 US. That's 100x. Now let's go over to Pulse. If Pulse succeeds, it could do a 10,000x. So if you want to die on the sword for Ethereum, hey, look, go for it. Yep. But if you want to die on the sword for Pulse, look, 10,000x isn't guaranteed. It's not even guaranteed that Pulse will succeed. So what do? Well, I just hedge my bets. If I put $1,000 on both of them, for argument's sake, it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't, and this is the key. Whilst all these people are fighting within the crypto community saying this coin's better than that coin, oh, I hate that coin, this coin, the big boys and those who understand what's going on, they look at it as a roulette table. Let's say a roulette table's got 36 numbers. Now, of course, in the crypto space, we've got 14,000 numbers. I think there's 15,000 numbers now. But what you need to do if you want to be a good investor is you say, what are the top 36 for argument's sake? So when you go with this analogy with the roulette table, you say, right, there's 14,000 coins here. I've done my research. I understand their background. I reckon those are the top 36. And if you want to treat it like a casino, and we have to keep it real here, a lot of people are treating it like a casino. But the difference is when I go into a casino, I can't research which coin's going to come up. You can look at the board and say, well, black came up before, so red's going to come up now. But that doesn't mean anything. What happened on the last spin isn't going to affect what happens on the next spin. It's only for superstitious people. But in the crypto space, I can research those numbers. I can research what is the background, what is the community, what's the technology, what are the competitors. Okay, those are my top 36 numbers. And if I put $1,000 on each of those numbers, or keep it basic, let's say I put $1 on each of those numbers, I only need one of them to come up better than 36 to 1. And I've made all of my money back, even if the other 35 lose. But here's the thing, Brandon. The odds are better than 36 to 1. The odds are like 1,000 to 1, or 2,000 to 1, or 10,000 to 1. And here's the other thing. When you roll the wheel on the roulette table, or the ball on the roulette table, only one number can win. But in crypto, 10 numbers can win.
Yep.
And the other thing is, it's not final. That is, they can be winning multiple times. It's like going to the roulette table, and I get this analogy of and throwing 10 balls on the roulette table and watching 10 balls come up. And once one ball comes up, you take your win, and then that ball gets rolled again. And you can sort of exit and come off and on now and then. Now, I only talk about this gambling analogy because the truth is most people are here to make money. That's not to say that crypto doesn't have a future for, I think NFTs have a big future in passports, for driver's license, birth certificates, land certificates, everything in the future will be an NFT, because it just makes perfect sense that you make an immutable digital certificate that says, I own this thing. That makes perfect sense. Don't worry about the art. When it comes to Bitcoin, that is absolutely the equalizer for everything that is money in the financial space across the world, and it encourages democracy. But right now, because we're on the front line of the development of this, many of us are here to make money, and there are huge opportunities to make money. And if you let your ego go, let go of your ego, research those top 36 numbers, realize that the returns are better than 36 to 1. There's still risks involved in all of it, of course. And if you let that go, you look at what the big boys are going. They say, there's a roulette table. I'm putting $1 on every single number, and I do not care which one wins. I don't care. And I don't actually care which one loses. I'm here to make money. And if you take that mindset, you can, in fact, make unforeseeable amounts of money here. Where people are going to get wrecked is they let their egos get in the way, and they say, no, it's going to be 00 green. That's the only number that's going to come up. And it's like, okay, us big boys are just going to take all of your money and you play that game.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. Because, I found that people that are emotionally involved in certain protocols or cryptos or anything like that are very, very bad investors. Because if you're an investor, you can't be emotional. Like that they're the ones that are, this is to the moon's the only one I concentrate on. And they're generally the ones that, buy the tops and sell the bottoms.
Yeah.
Because even trading is an emotional a game, so that's why that these camps and these armies and all that sort of thing, all this division, I just think it's nonsense. You're not getting the true assets of things. And we make money, but like I said, like I've sacrificed Pulse and Pulse X, and I've been the Hex for ages and all that, and I do have a large portion of my portfolio in Hex, and that's not because I allocated a large proportion, is because of the growth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I probably only put in 10, 15% of my portfolio, but at 10,000x. Do you know what I mean? So if you look at my portfolio in a circle disc, it'll be this much Hex and this much of these other things. It's not because I allocated a greater account. I just put in what I could afford and what I thought it was worth, and I monitored it, and it's worked out well. There's been other projects that I put in that have absolutely mooned, like just gone ballistic, and then other ones that haven't, but you don't have a crystal ball, and this is what I'm sort of, I don't know, with all these parachains and these forks and everything that's happening in the crypto community, even right down to DeFi and like loans and, like you said, earning interest and that sort of thing. Where do you see, well, the future of crypto, but also it's any hurdles or its biggest hurdle for say, because I ask this of everyone, because I don't know whether I'm speaking on your behalf, where people like us have forgotten what it's like to be a person that has seen someone or heard someone mention Bitcoin, and then they saw a little bit in the newspaper, and then it happened to be mentioned here or there. Because to me, without going into me too much, is it fully made sense. I was prepared for Bitcoin before Bitcoin it became on my radar, because libertarian, reading Levi von Mises, Murray Rothbard, and getting into Austrian economics and all that. And then when I got this Bitcoin thing, I was like, I get it. The lights went on. I'm like, this makes perfect sense to me. But the average person, like what is the biggest barrier to get the average person in? Because I don't remember what it's like to be back then, you know?
There's two biggest risks in crypto, in my opinion. Number one is regulation. Innovation comes from the private sector, and then the public sector ruins it in broad terms. Yeah. So the innovation comes from the private sector, and then the public sector will come in and regulate it and tax it and restrict it and stop it and control it. That is a historical objective truth. It is absolutely the truth with everything that we can see in everything that develops. Now, but the good thing about Bitcoin is that it cannot be stopped. You might say, as an example, we're going to stop the internet. Well, you can't, because if you stop it, ask North Korea ask how their economy is going. When they cut themselves off from the economy and they say, well, we're going to be an autarchistic society and only allow innovation within and communication and commerce within, well, look at their economy. It's an absolute mess. So you don't have a choice as a government to say, I'm going to stop Bitcoin, because the rest of the world is using it. And the US dollar is collapsing. And it's not because they're America or stars or stripes. It doesn't matter. It's because it's fiat. Fiat operates in market failure. Fiat is a Ponzi scheme, and all Ponzi schemes eventually collapse. All fiats eventually collapse. And it doesn't matter what flag you fly, what language you speak, what aircraft carriers you drive, all fiat collapses. So now we have an alternative, and the alternative is Bitcoin. So I think that the biggest risk to all of this space is, in fact, regulators who are going to try and come in and stop it. And my forecast is this, and I've said this publicly before, it's quite controversial, but after having served and having degrees in economics and being in the crypto space, this is my vision for what's going to happen. The US dollar and fiat is a money of war. And the only way that they can maintain that control is with 14 aircraft carriers and an arsenal of nuclear weapons. You use our money or we will bomb you. That is a horrible thing to say, but a matter of fact. Ask what happened to Saddam Hussein when apparently he had weapons of mass destruction. There was, and Gaddafi, well said. Yeah. Anyone who says we're going to break away from the petrodollar, they can expect an aircraft carrier on their doorstep and bombs falling out of the sky.
Within days.
Yep. But guess what? They're not going to do it to China. They're not going to do it to India. They're not going to do it to Iran. So fiat, no matter how, as I said, it doesn't matter how many aircraft carriers you have, fiat always dies, always dies. And the US dollar is no exception to it. So the United States, if they want to maintain their position, they have to embrace Bitcoin. They have to embrace, just as any country who wanted to fight the internet, they're going to collapse. So they have to embrace the internet. If you embrace the internet of knowledge, you will succeed and you will flourish. If you embrace the internet of money, the same is true. If you fight either of those two, you're going to fail, because it's a rule of the universe. It's not my rule. It's the rule of mathematics. Mathematics is a pure code that says, hey, fiat operates in market failure. Everything in market failure always collapses, including fiat. So what I think is going to happen is this. There is going to be a war. And I hope I'm wrong. But the truth is that war is part of the macroeconomic cycle. If you understand macroeconomics and you understand fiat, war is part of that cycle. Sounds horrible, very confronting, not an opinion, just a fact. Yeah. So now we are coming to the end of the fiat road for the US dollar. So war is about to kick off. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. Where we're going to have, in my opinion, huge conflict, whether it's cyber conflict or traditional conflict. There will be massive conflict, and then we're going to come to a head. And there's going to be a table of the world leaders sitting around looking at each other with a figurative or literal red button for their nukes or all-out catastrophic war. And they're going to say, I want to be the global reserve currency. No, I want to be the global reserve currency. No, I want to be the global reserve currency. And of course, everyone wants the power to print money. But we can see what happens when we print money without limit that's connected to nothing. It erodes everyone's value. It creates an unfair playing field for one country over another country. Conflict builds and then war erupts. So eventually when they get to this point, they're going to say, look, America, I don't want you to be the global reserve currency. China, I don't want you to be the global reserve currency. Russia, Pakistan, India, Iran. How about we meet halfway and we adopt a global reserve currency that is controlled by no one? And that, my friend, is Bitcoin. It is a pure mathematical code that creates a level playing field for either communist nations or democratic nations or everyone in between. It is the ultimate equalizer. So Bitcoin, in my opinion, is the fairest money that we have ever seen. And it's better than gold because we can see that with gold, when it's held in a vault, we already know that people hold multiple pieces of paper against the one piece of gold. That is, there's an ounce of gold in a vault. You think you own it. I think I own it. Jono thinks he owns it. And Barry thinks he owns it. And guess what? We all own it because this centralized corrupt system has written a note against that one piece of gold for everyone.
Yep.
Bitcoin, you can't do that. Bitcoin shows us everyone, hey, Barry owns that Satoshi, Jono owns that Satoshi, Brandon has that one, and Adam has that one, and no one can argue it. It is completely fair, neutral, open, and transparent. That's Bitcoin. That's where I see the future of Bitcoin, the global reserve currency. Now, does that mean that there won't be other currencies? Absolutely not. We already have different global currencies. We have different fiats. We have different bus passes. We have different gift certificates, frequent flyer miles, credit card points. The beer economy, as an Australian, we understand that. Mates rates, these are all types of money that absolutely work. But the two top monies at the moment are the US dollar and gold. Now, gold, I think, will always have a place, but many people will understand that, in fact, instead of having two notes written against it, I want to hold my gold, but I can't send this gold around the world very quickly. The rest of the crypto market, at least 95% of all the coins will collapse.
Yep.
I almost guarantee that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make a lot of money off it now. You can absolutely make a lot of money off it now. I've given the analogy of, think of these markets like waves in the ocean. If you're a surfer, you understand that you can catch a really powerful big wave, but that wave will eventually die down to nothing and be a ripple on the ocean and then wash back out into the sea. Now, does that mean that wave didn't exist? And does it mean that the wave never had power? And does that mean that I didn't surf the wave? Of course not. It was there. There was a time to get on the wave and there was a time to get off the wave. And that is the same for all these other cryptocurrencies. If you know how to play the market and you don't let your emotions get in the way and you don't discriminate, you're going to be able to ride these massive waves of wealth. And if you get off on the right time, you're going to make huge amounts of money and be able to put that money into the right space. When we look at the altcoins, there is an argument that there could in fact only be three coins that we need: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and dare I say it, XRP. Why XRP? Because if the banks always hold their foot in the global financial stage and this is a big and, they adopt XRP, those are primarily the only three coins we need. Now, when I say Ethereum, I say it with this caveat. Many coins can be built on top of Ethereum. So when I say that we'll only have Ethereum, that doesn't mean that there can't be other things like Hex, which is built on top of Ethereum, or Cardano, which could be the replacement to Ethereum and the other coins that are built on top of it.
Or Mana or Sandbox.
Absolutely.
Economies within inside the economies.
That's right. So if you look at the Bitcoin economy could be the global financial reserve, the payment rails. You might think of Bitcoin at the moment on the surface as just Bitcoin. No, there are so many things within Bitcoin. Then we go over to Ethereum. You might say, well, that's just Ethereum. No, there's so much built on top of Ethereum. Now, again, it might not be Ethereum. It could be Pulse. It could be Cardano. It could be Avalanche. But whatever it is, it would be that smart contract coin with all of these economies built within them. And then we look at the XRP coin, and it could be XLM or Stellar as an example. Those are coins that could in fact be used by centralized financial systems to make a very efficient payment rail system, like the SWIFT network, which isn't efficient, but something to replace the SWIFT network. It's just a theory, and it's a thought experiment that I've been thinking about a lot. Those are the three main coins that could in fact be the only ones that you need to invest in, noting that there will be layer 2 solutions and other foundations built on top of those.
Yeah, how I kind of sorted out in my head is the .com boom, right? Yeah, where you just put .com after your name and number goes up, and had all these people just throwing money into, these things that had no utility, had no use case, just .com written after it, right? But out of that .com boom, 95% of them all don't exist anymore. But out of that, you've got Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, go down the line. And these ones that did succeed have actually either bought out or incorporated these other ones into them. You know what I mean? Because
well said.
That's how I kind of understand. And that's how I look at the crypto market at the moment, is the early 2000s .com boom. I know that 95% of these are not going to be around in 5 or 8 years, right? But I can use these coins to, as they go up, I can take the profits out of them and put them into more of a stable part of my portfolio.
Yes.
And then use that as a function. Because, like you said, there's ecosystems within type of ecosystems. And then for people that are building things on Cardano or Tezos or, Polygon or Ethereum or whatever, Pulse, you've got to have a market fit. And I don't think that I don't think the industry has sorted out the clarity of where their product is going to fit yet. I think it's sort of in its evolutionary stage, but what gives me hope is that they have the ability to change quite quickly, as opposed to government. A government, in order for them to change a decision, 2 or 3 years it takes them to make the decision. By that time, the decision's irrelevant.
The inefficiency of democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, it's like you said, Richard Hart has this idea, let's just implement it. Let's just do it, Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe and share. Follow us on Orange Brick Road on Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook.